you got to be prepared for him. You know, you got to think ahead for him. Like that's why the experience I got through lorry driving. Been a lorry driver since I was 17 years old, like on a 7.5 ton vehicle. When I was 21, I passed my heavy goods, my class 1 heavy goods, my articulated. And there's a woman driver looking in front, only just indicated now. She's turning right. She stops first, looks around the road and then indicates. Prime example. There you go. The guy who let her across. There's a man. A woman reversing a car out onto the main road. Look, right in front. Reverse right in front of a bus and me. There you go. Well, what can I say? A woman passes a test and she's let loose. She's lethal to the road. See what I mean? And in the morning, we gotta put up with that nonsense. It's no good. Well, I think they should stay home doing the cooking or something like that. See an ambulance, no one's giving way. Look at this guy going right across now. A woman driver, Ricardo. She can see an ambulance with his lights on, his siren on. She's just come right across the lights. There you go. You have a look how many women drivers in the morning and driving cars. The majority of the people waiting in the queue of traffic are women. Yeah, look, over opposite now is woman driver. There's 3 in a row there, women drivers. Gotta do without them, right, sometimes, but...
I think they take out their frustrations on their car. They tend to let their emotions come to the fore when they're behind the wheel. You know, if they're feeling quite aggressive, then they're aggressive with their use of clutch and brakes and accelerators, the old rev, you know, nothing like the old rev to get rid of some of that rage. Whereas with me, I use driving to chill out. I can actually think when I'm driving. It's the only time I get when I'm on my own and I can think. And I can sort out my head, you know, I can work out what we're gonna have to eat over the weekend, childcare arrangements. I suppose you could say that I'm not concentrating, but I'm sure I am. There again, I have been known to drive 30 miles and not even remember having driven the 30 miles. I would say that with regards to irate men, I probably come across one every week. And, you know, it's generally if you've sort of nipped in somewhere or you've gone through one of those, I don't know what they're called, where the road narrows and you dart through. Road slower downers. And you sort of get through and you shouldn't do, and they tend to glare at you and do that and do that. And then I just sort of go, they really hate that. Or if you do the little girl lost, oh sorry, they don't like that either, but they hate the cheesy grin. I've really mastered the cheesy grin.
The evidence is now that men and women have a brain that's organised in a different way. So there's a practical reason why they might drive differently. A woman's brain, when it comes to language, is organised on both sides of the brain. A man's brain is focused on just one side of the brain. So her brain is more integrated. She's got more connections between the two halves of the brain. She can do more things at once, whereas he is very much more focused, single-minded. He does one thing at a time well, but gets really in a mess when he tries to do several things at once.
Driving has to be 100% concentration. You can't mix it with other things. I followed a woman the other day, was combing her hair all the time, travelling at 40 miles an hour through a roadwork, section of roadworks. I suppose she was coiffeuring for about half an hour, I suppose, something like that. At times, getting very close to the car in front, having to brake suddenly and weaving around in the road. But I think you sort of expect that kind of driving from women. I've been knocked off motorbikes 3 times by women drivers. And I think that is obviously bound to colour the way that one looks at them from then on.
When I began driving, there was about 3 ladies that used to work, but I think in the last sort of 9 years, there's a hell of a lot more now. There is a hell of a lot more ladies driving now. If a woman's made a mistake, she'll just say sorry, that's it, end of story, and on we go. But a man will try and pass the blame, especially if he's a woman, I think. I don't know, because obviously I'm not a man driver, I don't know. But I tend to find that they try and pass the blame. They won't accept responsibility for their actions.
Express car 8.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Central, BRI?
Brilliant. Can you make your way to Clifton Down Shopping Centre, please?
No problem, away.
I think the way that men drive on the road does reflect their outlook, yes. I think they tend to still go back to the Stone Age days where they beat the women over the head with a club and drag them off by their hair. And I don't think they like the competition very much.
Boys and girls, even at a terribly young age, start to behave differently. Girls are cooperative, they are chatty, they natter away to each other. Boys are competitive, they play games that involve testing each other's skills. They're more interested in objects and things. They don't really care too much about sort of people and conversations. Now, of course, culture plays its part. Girls are given dolls, boys are given cars, and they're encouraged in that way. We're biased in a biological way, and culture reinforces our biology. So we grow even more different.
The worst aspect of driving for me is definitely overtaking. It's horrific. You really have to judge the speed of the car coming towards you, and I've never been any good at that. I actually avoid multi-storey car parks like the plague as well. I can't stand those because of the corners. I'll drive around to look for a parking space in one of the streets, but I've improved my parking over the years, probably because I've had a few bumps.
There are 3 important aspects involved in driving. There's a minimum amount of skill involved, which is what you learn in the test. And typically, males are better at learning those skills than females. The next aspect is being able to read the road and spot the hazards on the road and react accordingly. And the typical female driver is less good at hazard perception than the typical male driver, but that's only because the typical female driver is less experienced. The final aspect is the expressive aspect of driving, and that's roaders' theatre and people using driving to express their personality, their characteristics in the manner that they drive. And again, women are much better at constraining their individuality and driving safely and carefully than men are.
I had this little space that was about 6 inches bigger than my car. I parked my car in it, no trouble whatsoever. Absolutely magic. You know, the times when you want the men drivers to be watching you. Yeah. I went into the shop. When I come back out, all the cars were still in the same position. Of course, to get out, you've got to shunt a bit because you don't get out on the same lock as you went in on.
Back a little bit.
And this woman is watching me. And then I opened the window and she said, some people are most inconsiderate the way they park, aren't they? I said, pardon? She said, well, fancy boxing you in like that. Her face was a picture when I told her that I'd actually put the car in the space. Spot. She didn't believe me.
But that's her excuse. That's your excuse. Oh, well, they boxed me in, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know why men think that we can't park, don't you?
No, don't even go along that route.
Do you really want to know? Well, for years, men have been trying to teach us women that is 6 inches.
like the population of women now driving is, they've just handed licenses out left, right and centre, you know what I mean? I think they feel intimidated if a woman goes for a test and they tell her that she's failed. They go, what? Have a look at this now. A woman on a pavement, look. She's on a pedestrian here. Pedestrian way, she's parked the car. Let's drive off now, over the pavement, down the pavement, onto the main road in front. No indication. Just pulled out, not a care in the world. No indication or nothing. She's indicating to go in another lane now, pulled right in front of an articulated lorry. What is it? It's just a normal Thursday morning.
I couldn't live without a car. Car means a lot to me. I take a lot of time over it, look after it. I love driving all the time. Just love driving everywhere. Really enjoy it, especially the looks you get driving quite a nice car. It's a Williams look-alike, and it's the only one that looks like this anywhere, I suppose. I mean, you can do so much to them to tweak them up a bit more, to get them more powerful. It's just, yeah, well, again, it's all about showing off, you know, who's got the most power sort of thing. I've had real bad problems with this car. First problem was a head gasket blowing, and 2 months later it blew again. 2 days later it blew again, had a new engine, and again the head gasket blew again. I've just got it back today. I know hundreds of people into this. I've got about 3 or 4 good friends who are into it. It's just all people into the same thing, getting along, having a laugh.
There's very good reasons why younger people, especially younger men, are more daft on the roads. They have much higher testosterone levels when they're younger, and that sort of enhances that sort of competitive, I want to beat you stuff. I mean, they want to play racing games. The average woman, average girl, isn't going to want to do that. There'll be exceptions, you'll get 1 or 2 there, but on the whole, it'll all be the guys playing silly buggers.
Public transport sucks. That's why driving is important. No, it's nice driving anyway, even slowly.
If they're in front of you, just drive close to their car at the back, and then if they want to race, they'll put their foot down and they'll go, and then it's just game on then. But if they're behind you, they'll do the same to you. But if you drive like close to them and they don't want to know, they just won't put their foot down at all, then you just back off then, and they don't want to race, which is like, you know, fair enough. You don't go out like looking for it. Most of the time it's just like a coincidence.
Yeah,
it just happens. It happens. Like, if not, then it's...
But we never race, do we?
No, we're very responsible.
This is a general scene in Newport, but usually they do drive or race up by the train station. But they can't do that now because the roadworks have sort of lengthened the so-called strip.
They don't generally keep still like this in one place. It's mostly just tear assing up and down all over the place.
It is like a drug. Men and boys have a much more sensitive pleasure centre. So they get an almost high from taking a risk, from driving too fast. They get, you know, it's pleasurable for them. Whereas for women, it isn't. They don't see the sense of it because they don't get that high. So it's inevitable. It's no surprise to me that all the statistics show that men do have more accidents. Men are more dangerous on the road than women.
One thing I am extremely ashamed of is the state of my car. It's because we moved house, and I've got so many things I don't know what to do with because they're too good to throw out and they're too bad to keep, so it sort of stays here in an eternal state of limbo. Then I've got my Slimming World passport, which I've sort of given up on, but I might start back. And then I got this double buggy, and I've got nowhere to put it. And the garage is full. I mean, I've got lots of old clothes, your kids' clothes, or dust sheets. Well, then my mother-in-law's, they gotta go back. So for the time being, my shopping sort of balances on there. It's just not as important to me as it is to the men I know. Plus, men want to look good, you know, they don't want to look stupid driving. Somebody cuts me up, fine, I brake, that's okay. I know in the same situation that some men I know would probably start a little war then. You know, there'd be a lot of sidling up his backside and trying to intimidate. Doesn't bother me. Somebody could be intimidating me now and I wouldn't have a clue.
When I passed my test, I was fairly confident learner driver. I think it gave me more freedom. If I needed a break from the house or university, I'd just get in the car and go for a drive, sing along to my tapes. It was a day like today, nice and bright and sunny. I was on the way home and coming off a roundabout, I noticed the car. I overtook it. He was tailgating me down the road, making obscene gestures. And then I seemed to lose them. I happened to be overtaking a car. When they approached my car fast, overtook me on the inside, swerved towards my car, and I panicked. My car hit the barrier and then tumbled over the road. I couldn't do anything. And knowing that they were to blame and caused the crash, they just left me there on the side of the road, practically dead. I was unconscious for 5 days in intensive care. The hospital told my mother and father to prepare themselves for the worst. I suffered a punctured lung, broken ribs, internal bleeding, minor cuts and lacerations to my face, extensive bruising. I'm still recovering because I can't get in the car and feel as confident as I did before.
Young male drivers are overrepresented in the crash statistics, and we think a large part of the reason for that is because they're more likely to do what we call violations on the road. Speeding, easily the most common. Close following or tailgating, running red lights, drink driving, showing hostility to other road users, engaged in unofficial races with other road users. If you add in that kind of bad attitude and inconsiderate reckless driving with their inexperience, that can be a fatal combination. Having said that, these days it looks as if there are increasing numbers of young female drivers who are driving in this high violating manner, and in fact young females are catching up fast, I'm afraid to say, with young males in that respect.
I work in central London in Covent Garden. I work for 7 young women's magazines. I look after the fashion and entertainment advertising, so it's a very, very busy job, and hence I use the car to get around and see clients. I'm just approaching Kensington Park Road, which is about 5 minutes drive from where I live. It's a really, really nice place to hang out on a weekend, as you can see. It's a typical example of single women in London today. You see them all pull in, and my God, the Puma is a bit of a shoddy car compared to what they're driving in. It's basically all the cars you would admire that men were driving a couple of years ago. It's the women driving them now. I get stressed. To to be honest. Oh, someone's just kicked my car. There you go. Yes, people don't like you in a brand new car. I do sometimes, but it's more not because of the roads or the way the roads work in London. It's more the fact that I'm always in a hurry. And that's just the pace of London. So I get frustrated because I hate being late. I suppose there is that sense of satisfaction when you're at the lights, and I never thought I'd admit this. It is quite nice to get away at those lights when you see a man next to you as he's looking at the car and say hello. Another bloody female driver.
I think that men have got their impression of women drivers being appalling because in the past they probably were. They didn't drive as much, but now more women are driving. They're getting more practice, they drive more often. They're getting rather good at driving. So I think it's a legacy of the past. Men do think women can't drive, but in actual fact they've caught up now and drive just as well, probably better than most men.
You know, look, on the inside now, I'm in the lane. A woman on the inside of me has come on the inside lane, and I said, she's in a lane where there's bollards. You know you can't get further on in the lane, but she's cut in front of the lane, she's cut in front of me to get one place further in front of me. She ain't gonna get nowhere. And she's looking down, looking at her books and all that, laughing and joking. At the top of it all, she's on a mobile phone. She's on a mobile phone as well. Yeah, look, in front of me now, she don't know where she's going. Look, there you go. An example. Need I say more?
Four, five, six, these are the heavy ones. And then one came through the